Alright, welcome back guys. It's been a long time since I've been able to go live lately. Haven't really been able to finish up the last few videos that are left in the First Aid Mastery playlist. We're almost done with respiratory, and then after that I just need to make a quick video about the general question I get a lot of emails for, which is how to study for step one. What's most effective, what's effective for different people I've worked with, right? No one thing works for everyone. So students often ask me what would be great for someone like them, and then they tell me what works for them usually, right? So I want to make a video about that pretty soon too. And I'm going to try to wrap up a bunch of videos like today and tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday. Just get it all done and then post it so that I don't have to worry about it too much, because it's actually a pretty nice and quiet day. So the problem with, ever since COVID has started, the problem with that is that although I am home a lot more than I was pre-COVID, so is everybody else. So in my own house, for example, sometimes my sister's watching stuff and that's making noise. Sometimes my parents are watching stuff and laughing and talking and that's making noise. There's significantly more phone calls coming, so that's also a thing. And then, of course, another big impact is that being the way the infrastructure in New York is, houses are a lot closer together and everyone else is home. So my neighbors are home and they're often in the backyard or wherever doing all kinds of things, and it's great that they're doing their thing indoors, but of course the noise wouldn't really let me stream successfully. So on the screen right now, what we see is the whole statistics page from Google regarding updated information. It keeps updating every 20-30 minutes about how coronavirus is affecting people throughout the world, right? So keep in mind that although this is what we see, statistics is a very critical thing, right? You see it because it was reported, but you also don't see things that were not reported. So this isn't everything. This is just what we know, basically. For the most part, this does not look like it's ending anytime soon. Right, of course, yeah, the curve was going up exponentially and it's slowly tapering off now, but the only reason it's happening, the only reason it even tapered off is because of the time that people have been quarantined, right? We're almost over a month now of just staying home for the most part, and businesses are closed, everything is as much closed as possible, and it takes time for those effects to kick in. So like if everyone goes home today, it's going to be after a week or two that the curve starts going down, because no one was spreading it and people are getting healthier and no one's increasing in how many more people are getting sick. So things are getting better, right? And then now, just a couple days ago, New York was announcing that they want to try opening up businesses again, kicking the economy up again, and all this stuff. Trump was able to give out the $1,200 stimulus check that, was no big deal at all, because it's $1,200 that's being given to you so you can spend it back to the economy. It's not really money you're supposed to save or be able to effectively use for whatever you wish. This is a bad time for everyone, so $1,200 is really nothing. It doesn't do much for anyone at all. Even if you're a family of 4 people and each of you got $1,200, that's still all going to disappear, because again, at the same time, although you got $1,200, that would have probably been your paycheck had you been working. So it's sort of like you got paid for working without working, but at the same time, like, it's just not good enough because nothing else is happening. So now if Trump and local governors, local mayors are all talking about restarting everything, restarting work, restarting businesses and people going back out again, that curve is going to accelerate once again, right? All in all, we all understand that it is impossible for us to be like, okay, everybody can go back to clubbing, eating at restaurants, going into beaches and all of these things, movie theaters, right? Places where people are packed together. We can't say all of you guys can go back to doing that until one of two things happens, one being more preferred than the other. Number one, a vaccine happens, right? A vaccine for COVID-19 happens to surface up. That won't be happening for at least another 10 months, right? It's already been 2 months of time. People have been doing research. At a minimum, it's safe to usually say it would take a year for a successful vaccine to be made, tested, and passed, right? So until a vaccine doesn't come out, why would any of us risk going anywhere where we can contract the coronavirus and then bring it back home to our elderly family, right? There's no way anyone should be doing that. And then number two, if a official, proven, well-working, effective treatment gets passed, right? One medication that's been spoken about very vaguely, very rarely compared to how successful the medication is remdesivir. I talked about it in one of my earlier videos. Remdesivir has been very successful in many patients, and no one talks about it. It hasn't really been mentioned anywhere on TV as far as, you know, the presidential updates and all of that. And it's very rarely mentioned by even many of the special doctors that are famous on YouTube and other social media right now for giving their input, like Dr. Mike, Dr. Fauci, all of these other people haven't really mentioned remdesivir that much, and I don't know why, right? I'm not sure if it's because it would cause a panic if they mention the medication. I'm not sure if it's because the medication isn't FDA approved. I mean, neither was chloroquine for the, you know, earliest part, and everyone was talking about it. So that was kind of dumb, right? Chloroquine isn't exactly safe at all. It's one of those medications that can cause torsades due to the QT prolongation. And I'm sure there were people that even died from taking chloroquine. It's very likely that there might have been people somewhere on Earth who took chloroquine because they had coronavirus-like symptoms or officially had coronavirus diagnosed, and they didn't survive the chloroquine side effects. So, you know, these are things that are causing major issues. And right now, on the bottom right, we have the statistics from New York, right? So we have 222,000 cases that are confirmed in New York, of which 17,000 have recovered. But, you know, it's almost like a 50-50. 14,636 people have died, right? Now, in New York specifically, when one person dies because of anything, whether a rock fell on them, and that is a real thing. Not too long ago, in Manhattan, there was a building with really old infrastructure, and it was like I think the building had like lion head shapes or something, and one of them was chipping, and it broke, and it fell on this woman. She was a practicing lawyer in Manhattan, and she died from that, right? Whether it's something like that, whether someone dies to a gunshot in the Bronx, Brooklyn, wherever, anything happens, it's a huge deal. Huge deal. Right now, that being said, 14,636 people dying is unimaginable. Medcram, right? Yeah, sure. People from different channels are mentioning it. Yes, but I never understood, and I still don't understand why Dr. Fauci, Dr. Mike, you know, many of the other doctors that are very popular on social media for their COVID-19 input. There's a bunch of them, by the way. Everyone's using this opportunity to, you know, share the knowledge with everyone through YouTube, through social media, so people don't have much of a panic. The last thing you want amidst a pandemic is a panic also. You don't want both things, right? So sure, you know, many of these doctors are talking about all kinds of things, but the doctors aren't necessarily mentioning many of these treatments that are out there. And then channels like mine and Medcram and many others are talking about it because, you know, we're going out there looking at stuff, and of course it's all on clinicaltrials.gov. Like I mentioned in my last video, a lot of the treatments, it's just not being officially approved yet. And I don't know what we're waiting for, right? Clearly, the FDA needs to reevaluate itself, and the government, the whole world needs to reevaluate FDA, restructure FDA, because they've just recently, last week, faced many issues, right? They were trying to hide information, hide data, hide statistics, and that's not how this works, right? You cannot do clinical trials and hide anything. You're never allowed to hide anything in clinical trials. In fact, anything you do in clinical trials has to be reported internationally on clinicaltrials.gov. And FDA got in trouble for that. FDA also needs to reevaluate what will they do in cases like this where people are dying very, very rapidly, every other minute. So in those kinds of cases, we need to be able to approve medications much quicker, right? Much, much quicker. I mean, Trump isn't a doctor, though, you know, so him mentioning, there are so many hilarious clips all over YouTube where people are making fun of Trump because he said something good, too. He said, I'm not a doctor, what would I know? But then if you're not a doctor and you wouldn't know, why are you running your mouth? You know, he also has a hilarious clip someone posted, many comedian pages have posted it, where he says hydroxychloroquine is FDA approved. after which the Surgeon General and many other doctors come on board and they say it's not approved. Like, how embarrassing is that? He should really not be talking at all, about any medications, and he doesn't have the degree, the knowledge, the credentials, any of this to be talking about treatment and disease. All he should be talking about is what he is asking people to do. Lead the people, because that's what you're basically elected for, unfortunately. So, all of this is happening now. In my own family this month, very unfortunately, I've had 2 people that passed away due to COVID-19. And it's been extremely rough. On on the 10th, this Friday right here, after my mom and dad, I've had one other person that was always very significant to me, Wenlieng. 30 years ago, right before I was born, my mom had just stopped working, but she used to work at a restaurant in New York City, at that time known as Shaheen Restaurant in Jackson Heights. That's the little Indian Central area here in New York, Queens. And when she was working there, she met with an excellent coworker, Wenlieng. He was the lead chef in that restaurant too. After that, when my mom stopped working, he actually started working at a restaurant that is still around, known as Kebab King. And Kebab King is a big franchise here in New York. It's got 2 locations, and the Jackson Heights location was known for Wenlieng's cooking. He was my uncle, not of blood relation, but he was more family than any of my other family really has been at times. And he was always there. He lived 10 blocks away. He would come over for everything, any birthday party, any graduation event, any other event that's happening, and not just in the happiness moments, but also in sorrows, right? If something bad occurred in our family, any kind of problem occurred, he would be here to share in that as well. And on the 10th, he passed away of COVID-19. He couldn't make it for many reasons. It was very unfortunate. 2 days before that, on the 8th, he had called me telling me that he's feeling really sick, and he's feeling like, he's coughing a lot, and he was very scared to go to the hospitals for good reason. I don't entirely blame him. He just didn't want to go. He felt like if he did go, he would die there. And he was having some borderline illiterate type thoughts, which, fear can make people very irrational. So he felt that if he did go, that he would be killed by the system, something like that. And I was able to convince him. I told him, listen, man, it's not like that. I have a lot of people I know that are going, etc., etc. And he eventually, the next day had to be actually taken to the hospital because he got really, really sick. And then one day being admitted, the next day he didn't make it. So that was a huge hit to my family, because personally, that's the closest person I could have possibly lost, other than mom, dad, or my sister. And it sucks, because for most of my life, he was actually more like a father to me than my own father had often been. And it was huge to lose him. Also, the second person that I know of that has passed away to COVID-19 is the father of Ali Ahmed. So Ali was a guy I had met at a gathering I had attended through an organization. It was just a gathering of other people that shared my last name, Malik. It was really interesting. We were all there. I was trying to make my parents meet more people so they can have more friends to communicate with and stuff like that. And Ali saw me. He approached me. He was like, "Aren't you Amir?" And I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" And he knew me from my YouTube channel. So that was pretty cool. We met. His parents were there. His parents and my parents met. It was really nice. Both of Ali's parents got admitted for COVID-19. His mom made it, but his father was not able to make it. So those are the 2 people that I know most closely that have passed away to COVID-19. Fortunately, everyone else I know is doing just fine. They're sitting at home, and they are financially well too. So, this is really bad. This is really bad. And it's not until you lose someone of your own that you really get to see how the situation is and who you are, right? Because this still doesn't condemn any kind of negativity towards a certain group of people, a certain race, or anything like that. And you can never go ahead and do things that wouldn't make sense if you switch places with that person. Of course, it is still understandable to call this the Chinese virus. There's no denying calling it that, because at the very least the virus first had reports in China, right? And that first COVID-19 video I made, I mentioned the doctor that came out of China and risked his own life to tell the world that something like this is happening there. And the problem isn't with the people of China, right? It's not that the people there like their own communist government either. It's the government itself, right? And you as a people can't really change your government. I can't change my government. I have a president that the whole world looks down upon, but I can't do anything about it, right? But you can't blame Americans entirely for that. It's also just how the system is. But something like that is a big issue. Now, how does this affect the rest of our educational life? That's another thing that I see a lot of you are asking about right now. And that's the other thing I wanted to talk about, right? So, USMLE just announced on yesterday, April 17th, that they will now be doing weekly updates, right? Weekly updates, because they clearly see that all of us are under great stress, uncertainty, and disruption, right? Because, of course, we're all like trying to take our tests and it's not working out because Prometric keeps pushing the test day, right? Their closures are just postponed over and over and over. However, apparently, Prometric has officially communicated that they're going to begin testing May 1st, 2020 on a site-by-site basis. Now, this part, I'm not 100% sure what that means. So I'm assuming that means that not all Prometric centers are going to open, resuming May 1st. And it wouldn't entirely be safe for them either. I'm also curious about what the operations would be like. Like, are we going to be allowed to come in with a face mask on? Are you going to evaluate our face masks? Stuff like that. Within the testing center, who's going to be in there? Is it going to be like all of us sitting next to each other because there clearly isn't a 6-foot distance between each table? Or is it just step students that are coming in? I'm not sure how that's going to work either. So there's a couple questions that would still need to be answered, but it's good to see that at least by May 1st, that gives you May, June, July, and August, 4 months to finish everything you've been preparing for. So hopefully all of you guys are, anyone that hasn't finished step yet, all of you guys are ready for step 1. Take it in May as soon as you can. Kill that test, break that 230, 240, and then go on to immediately preparing for CK and CS. Now, right after step 1, I personally had prepared for CK, and that's what I would advise here too, because all the CS testing centers are still going to be temporarily closed. So there's no point in preparing for that at the moment, right? Prepare for CK, knock that out too. If the CS testing centers don't open anytime soon, then that just means that USMLE and ECFMG are going to have to do something about that. Most likely what they're going to say is that CS is not going to be mandatory maybe for residency applications and like matching. It's very likely they might say something along those lines. Otherwise, I don't even know how everyone is supposed to take their CS exam after this resumes, because it's not that easy. There are so many people that, everyone needs to take it, right? All of us need to take our CS exam. And there are only 5 states that even do it. So the number one issue with the CS exam, as opposed to step 1 in CK, is that you can't take it in India, Pakistan, China, etc. You can't do that. You have to come into America to take the CS exam, and that involves traveling, which is again a problem with coronavirus. So that part, hopefully within the next week or 2, we're going to continue seeing more updates, and we'll figure something out. And every week when they have an update here, if I see something significant that I want to talk about, I'll go ahead and share it with you guys as well, and mention what I feel like everyone should be doing. So that being said, it's really bad right now. It's really rough. I appreciate the condolences you guys are offering. Thank you for that. It's not getting any better. It's not getting any better, because the only thing that's getting better are the results of quarantine. Everyone sits at home. No one else is getting sick. But that's not how you evaluate is the case scenario getting better. Not really, because as soon as everyone goes out again, more cases are going to show up. So that's kind of what I want to talk about right now. Very important for you guys to be watching that if you're trying to finish all your step exams. Continuously keep changing your Prometric test dates as you need to, okay? Because it's free, it's pretty immediate, and there are many available dates on the calendar. So, I checked it out. I went into the Prometric system. I used one of my friends' step one signature thing. They were trying to sign up actually, and then I was just checking it for them because they were at work and busy, and I saw that there are many available dates. Okay, so there are a lot of step 1s and CK dates that are available, at least in New York from what I'm seeing. So if it's available here, it's pretty much most likely available in many other places too. So go ahead and check, keep changing, and just stay safe, guys. Keep well. After this now, I'm going to go ahead and make a couple more videos. I want to finish up the full First Aid Mastery playlist, and then I want to make a video about how to study during quarantine, how to effectively be ready with everything, right? Not just study during quarantine, but how to study in general, because it's been a big question a lot of people have been asking me. So thank you very much for joining. I really appreciate all you guys. Keep safe. I'll be back in a little bit to continue on with the respiratory system and just wrap that up finally. Let me just make sure I see everything that people are asking. A family friend that died, she texted, yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that, man. 34 years old. It's unreal what's happening. Yeah, I saw that too. The quarantine lifestyle continuing until 2022, except that's, that would really kill the system. That would kill the economy entirely. We cannot anymore continue working from home. You have to understand there are many bad parts of everyone being home. Many bad parts. Let me just put it on a really short scale. My own mom in my house is feeling like shit because we're all home. It's taken away her alone time. And everyone needs that a little bit, right? My mom has her husband there 24/7, me and my sister there 24/7. We're all here all the time now. And that's really, something that's on a very short scale bothering her. It's not killing her, but it's really bothering her. She doesn't get to have any more of her alone time at all. And it's something that she was used to. There were times in the house where dad was at work, I was at work, Shama was at work, and now we're all here. Now, on a more grand scale, there are families that are very dysfunctional out there. Very dysfunctional families. There are people that are intensely emotionally unhealthy, right? Whether it be immense amounts of depression, immense amounts of anxiety, whatever it might be. And there are toxic families out there. There are all kinds of things out there that are causing issues because now they're all stuck together all the time. And distance is what harbors more positivity, oftentimes, right? So if they're all stuck together, things are getting really bad. And then, of course, many people have been laid off now, right? It's not even just about being essential anymore. It's about companies not wanting to pay many of their employees anymore because they understand these employees aren't working that much. There's nothing crazy happening. You stop paying them. The companies are starting to look for their own benefits and for their own good. It totally makes sense. And all of that is causing another big issue where in America, your health insurance is tied to your job. So if you have a job, that job is giving you health insurance. When you lose that job, you lose your health insurance. And that is a major issue in the face of a pandemic, right? Something like this has been discussed by many people on YouTube as well. So that's another thing that after this pandemic, and maybe even now, but most likely after this pandemic, that has to be evaluated and changed. Myung is asking UWorld second pass versus UWorld incorrect only plus start. Okay, yeah, so that is also another big question that a lot of people have asked me, and that's going to be something I'll discuss a lot of in my video about how to effectively study for step 1. But just to answer your question, I would heavily recommend, you should do a UWorld second pass of incorrects only, anything that you might have flagged, anything that you got wrong, and then move on to AMBOSS, because both those things are pretty important. Revision is always critical, but AMBOSS is also kind of like a revision of UWorld. It's very similar. The questions are all, very similar looking, but the answer choices are different. So AMBOSS is often like almost intimidating to people because they're like, oh, I know this topic, I've already done this in UWorld, but then you still get the question wrong. And it's because there was something little you weren't knowing, so you should go ahead and master that, And that's basically all there is to that. So Thank you very much for joining, guys. I'm going to be back in a little bit after eating some lunch, and I'm going to make my video on how to study for step 1 first, and then I'll continue on to go ahead and finish up the respiratory system. Stay safe, stay well, and keep studying, guys. Thank you.